If you did not hear Cynthia's instructions, we want to scooch and make sure that we have people at each table, or that we have more than 3 or 4 people at a table. So if you see if there's 2 of you, move to another table. If there's 3, look for another table. If there's 4, I think you're pretty good.
And you have your handout still. We're gonna be actually writing on it in a very analog way, the old-fashioned way, with pen, paper, dead tree items. Okay.
Okay, so you don't need an introduction.
No, we're fine. We're
Okay,
going.
good.
We're going, John.
This is the best introduction ever. Cynthia.
Thank you, John. Thank you. And I'm over here at the campfire, and someone is sitting very close to the campfire. Theodore is sitting very close to the campfire. All of its sticks. I know. Here we go. Okay. All right. We were in the middle of the change thing, and I'm backing us up just a little bit. Remember I said it was a pause, not a hard stop? Because what we're doing is we're going to go backwards a little bit and make sure that we all kind of get this piece that we're trying to talk about here. And we were actually talking about, I'm going to go back here. Somebody asked me at lunch, can you get better at this change stuff? And I said, yes, you can. Because what happens is there's a bunch of people who are actually consciously competent at doing the change stuff, but they don't know what they're doing. And you watch them, and they're really good at moving people through that curve, but they don't quite know what they're doing. So the curve helps them understand, oh, I'm here, and now I'm going to tell you what you do in each one of those phases. There are some people who are unconsciously, I'm sorry, I've got this backwards. Oh, okay, that's called taking it all back and going right back. I'm just demonstrating, redoing it. Okay, there are people who are unconsciously competent. There are also people who are unconsciously incompetent. They don't know why it doesn't work. They don't know why it always happens the way it did. And they were always there. And so part of that is having to be coached to those people. It's like, let's figure out what is not working and how do we stop it? Because my work with you is to help you become consciously competent about change, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's an organization, whether it's this organization or the other many organizations that you're part of. Because it's not just this organization that is trying to navigate the whitewater of change. So, I want to talk to you about 3 loops of learning. Very briefly, these are I like it because it's roller coasters and everybody kind of goes, you get that kind of nauseous feeling. Well, that's what change does to you. And if you look at the kinds of change that most organizations do, and this is our conversation to the side, is many organizations are really good at developmental improvement. It's kind of what the Subaru guy said, you can get there with little things, and you will get better. You will build skills, you will get abilities, That's single loop. So if you go back to that, you go around one of these and you get better at it. Second loop, or double loop learning, is where you're going from an old state to a new state. You're fixing some problem. A lot of people call the first one development stuff change. That's like if your kid is lugging around their blanket, they will have developmental change sometime. They will not go to college usually with their blanket. That's something that they will kind of grow through, and it kind of comes with just hanging out long enough. Transitional change is where you're trying to move from one thing to another, and you're doing it on purpose and you're redesigning or reorging. I'm saying that on purpose because reorging actually is moving stuff around but not doing transformation. Okay? And a lot of organizations burn through a lot of energy transitioning, but not dealing with their culture. Transformation is triple loop learning, where you go through the developmental, the transitional, but you break through to something else. That's that third loop. It's kind of like the Subaru people going to zero. Or Walmart going to zero waste. That's transformational. That's where your other guy, John Picard, last night was talking transformational. So that's the kind of stuff where you build a new paradigm. You go where you have not gone before. It's like the Solar City guy trying to say, oh my gosh, we're going out there. We don't even know how we're going to do it. So I just want to invite you to kind of maybe sharpen up your language a little bit, because a lot of people say, oh, we're doing change. Well, what kind of change? Because it requires a different level of attendance and skill and stewardship to accomplish that third loop. Because as a change leader, you're kind of nauseous yourself. You're probably more comfortable in transitional, especially if you're leading it, because you are leading the way. But when you are upside down too and not knowing what to do, then you are in that loop. So I just want to kind of give us a language set of what kind of change you're talking about. And you will never go wrong if you want to go back to the tried and true John Kotter, Harvard Business School, 8 things. He always starts out, establish a sense of urgency. And then we got into the whole burning platform and you must tell people it's going away. But if that's too frightening, people won't move. They'll get like deer in the headlights kind of thing. They'll get too scared to move. So you can't threaten people, but you have to. I always like to take people on field trips. Like, let's go out and see what other organizations are doing. Let's go. The first time I went to the Toyota plant and I noticed there was just everybody dressed in the same blue pit crew suit. And you couldn't tell who was boss and who was employee. And everybody's name was embroidered on their overalls. So you could talk to anybody. And I took some people from another nameless organization there, and it was like, the future has just shown up. So I encourage you, back in that scan and scout part of my model, of go out and look at what people are doing. Create your guiding coalition. That's what this room is. This is the room of people who are going to figure out how to move sustainability forward. Vision, strategy, tell people what's going on, draw them a picture, make them a map. Generate some short-term wins, like succeed early. No one is going to lose 20 pounds. Ask somebody to lose 2 ounces. Anybody can do that. You get people started where they can start, and you get them moving. You get them started. You don't ever tell them we're going to build a trail. You say you're going to build this bridge. You give them something to start with. The empowered broad-based action, that's really scary for organizations, because if you start letting them do stuff, they will do stuff. And I'll tell you, we'll end up the part today on what happened at Walmart. Consolidate and do more stuff. And then keep building it into the culture. Make it in your policies and procedures. Make it how you hire people. That little panel up here about what do you look for when you hire. Are you hiring for change ability, change capability? Everybody has change capability because everybody's been through something. We've already proved that. So ask people to come here and help you do that. Okay. We did all this, we did all this. Couple things about this transition. And yes, it would be great if everybody moved, nice and smooth through this thing and you were like, oh, it's step 1 and step 2. What happens is, let's imagine most people have 3 or 4 of these things going on at any time. Can I bring up the mic? I feel like I'm just shouting. I'm going to be with no voice very soon. I'm going to put it up here. There. Is that better? Can we bring up the mic just a little bit? Is that better? Oh, mic bringer-uppers? Okay. So imagine if you put your personal life and your professional life on this, you've got 4 or 5 of these going on at any one time. Because I always said, how come we're doing the same change but everybody experiences it differently? Because people have different things going on in their lives. And if your doggy just died, and if your grandma is sick, and if you're just being reorged and they're changing the bathrooms and whatever, you got 4 or 5 of these things whipping you around. And so anytime The zigzag is you could be here and then you're here, but then you go back here. So that's why the ing is very important. You're not resisting, you're not resistant. You are resisting because that's where you're parked. But you could get back to denying very quickly and moving and moving. And so expect people to zig and zag. The other thing about it, and I told you about the Tarzan and about not wanting to deal with this stuff. And what happens is if you don't deal with this stuff, it kind of goes underground and bubbles up. And in safety or truck driving or whatever, you got people smashing the trucks and doing all kinds of things, not because they're bad people, but they are hurt and upset and having loss. And nobody lets them say what was going on. I wrote a paper once called Plant Closure with Dignity. It's basically hospice work in the organization. And when you have to shut down a 4-inch wafer fab for no reason except they're not doing that work here anymore, and you've got 2,000 people in Salt Lake that didn't do anything wrong, you have to run a whole grieving process for them. So we painted the wall outside the cafeteria and let people graffiti very nasty things. Because when people can't talk, underneath anger is always grief and loss. So if you've got a bunch of angry people, figure out what they're losing. Figure out what's missing, what's going away. I used to train the police, and the most dangerous thing with the police is what do you call it, spousal arguments. Because they will basically, they'll stop arguing with their spouse and they'll shoot you. Because that's the way they solve it. So they're so upset. So you have to kind of help them understand what's the matter. So if you've got a bunch of people who are really moving through this, and this is what I said to Diane. I said, Diane, let's see if I get to this. I'm going to go ahead and I'll come back. Come on. Oops, come on. Where do you start? I hear waterfalls. I'm having auditory hallucination. Did you hear it too? Oh, thank you. I felt much better. I thought, oh gosh, I'm having a campfire experience right here. It was perfect. Thank you. That's what happens to me. I'm from San Francisco, and if the room shakes, I duck and cover. We think the earth is going down. But where do you start? Where do you start? Because people say, okay, where do I start? You do not start by going after the people who are asleep and hiding, because they will just asleep and hide more. And the other thing, you'll have these very funny spikes of pretend productivity. People will do the old stuff really well. And they'll do it well because they think if you don't catch them and they shine you on, they will be safe. So the second thing is you do not go after the grumpy people here. You don't like wade in. Go over here and start the people that are exploring, the people who are beginning to see the future, the people that are like not quite baked, but give them something to do. It's like that over-enthusiastic kid that can't give them something, peel something, go get water, something. Give them a role, give them something to do in the change that makes them feel part of it. Then you go back and you begin, because if you don't do that, these people will leave. They'll brain drain right on you and they'll be gone. Because they will not wait for all this. And so then you return and you wake people up by saying things like, if you don't use the new payroll system, you won't get paid. Oh, that's pretty clear. You know, there's an end to this. There's something that's going to happen. And then don't take everyone one-on-one and say, tell me all about it, because you will die. It will be too much. Get a whole room of people. Now, this is the IRS story, John. Let's imagine you're redistricting the IRS. Not pleasant. These people went to Kansas City to have their home and not be moved. And I said, I'm not doing this work unless the head of the IRS is in the room with me. So I don't rent out to do somebody else's work. A leader needs to be there, not on vacation when it's going on. So she came and we had 800 people in a huge ballroom. having big upsetness about why we hated the new restructuring. And they were at max mixed tables like you are, because complaint can be had safely when you're not with people you work with. And you can say how awful it is, and you could get you to put Post-it notes on the walls and, and put it all up. Because they needed to say, it felt unfair to them. And maybe it was, but it was going to happen. So in some ways, you handle the grieving in mass and let when IBM had to say, the engineers who created the mainframe had to say goodbye to the mainframe, that was a biggie. Because it's your identity. You made this thing, and now it's not happening. So we had them actually draw pictures, kind of like you guys did, of what was happening to them and stick it up on the wall. 300 people at a time in the cafeteria. They wrote horrible pictures, like, this is me, and I'm in the blender, and my boss is pushing the pulse button. I have never seen such horrible, horrible pictures. But engineer detail, very accurate. And you have a whole wall of that, and you go, a little upset, are we? But once they saw that everybody else was, it normalizes it. It begins to say, yeah, this is not so great. And then we begin to say, then these folks begin to create enough energy that there's some kind of interest in starting to move. You don't have to, the main thing you do here is you say thank you. You acknowledge people who have taken the long journey and have gone through it. And then you say, oh, and by the way, what do you think our next thing is going to be? And the next thing. Because it doesn't end. So the mythology that life is, some flat line, that's bad for your heart. You don't want the flat line on the EKG. You want it to go up and down. Okay? So very quick, as I finish this out, if you want to help yourself through change, this is the self-care stuff. I think I put this in your packet. Basically, if you are in denial, be there and say, oh, this is really hard. I don't want to look at this. Or just be where you are. I'll tell you one story. I'll tell you a story this is why I never talk to people on the airplane, because sometimes you are strapped in all the way to Denver. And you say that you do change stuff, and then they start to talk to you. And they talk to you. So this is a true story. And it was a guy who said, let me tell you, I just got laid off. Oh, I guess it's going to be a long ride. And he said, the first thing I did, I didn't go back. I got home, I didn't tell my wife. I got back in the car the next day, and I went back to work. Because his body had done that habitual pattern for a long time. And his brain had not caught up to his body. So he shows up at work, and there's no badge, and he can't get in the door. So at some point, you get like the wake up happens to you. He said, I went to the 7-Eleven, and I got the ice cream, the beer, and the videos, and I went home. And I laid on the couch. And then he proceeds to tell me he laid on the couch for 2 months. This is, begin to think, But finally his wife says, because this is how they make their money on outplacement. They give you outplacement, but it ends after about a month, and you're still on the couch. So one of the things we did in the closing the plant in Salt Lake was try to get everybody through the curve so they could make use of outplacement and the government grants we had for retraining. Because if they're still on the couch and they're still not coming out of their boohoo phase, they miss the opportunity. So this guy, finally gets up, gets another job. He says, you know what? Happened again. I begin to think, what is always here when this happens? What is happening? But in the Valley, it's very common, especially in the semiconductors and those kind of agencies. And so he said, you know what? I did not go back to the plant. I went straight to the 7-Eleven. I got the beer, I got the ice cream, I got everything. I laid on the couch. I've got it down to 2 days now. That's resilience. You see, because what you want to be able to do is head in and go, gracefully through the process, not clinging like little kitties with your nails hanging and then losing yourself in the, oh my gosh, and then missing the it took off and you weren't there. So that's my kind of way of narrating. And so feel your own resisting, listen to yourself, pull up the covers, you know, do whatever you have to do, but figure out how to get it down to 2 days so you can move rather than stay stuck. Reframing your exploration, you're not chaotic, you are just trying stuff out. And when you get focused again, then you're ready to go for a while. And here's what a leader does. Here's how you can kind of help people through this. You must talk to them about what's going on, even if they don't want to hear you, because you probably have told them 6 times, but they didn't hear you. Blah, 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 blah. Because if they don't hear you, they don't have to deal with it. So the manager gets very frustrated. I told them about this. They didn't hear me. They don't hear you because they're not listening. They don't want to listen. So tell them again. Or tell them with 300 people in the room and make them draw pictures so they really get it. Okay? So that it gets visceral to them. The second phase is you must listen. This is the hardest one. I used to have a big thing of tape in my bag because the leader does not want to listen. Everybody wants to take the speaking seminar, not the listening seminar, very quiet. And so the leader has to come in and listen to what people are saying. Back to that loyal resistance stuff. They have to hear the voices on the edge and say, what's that saying? Not, oh, those crazy people don't know what's going on. Because the more you listen, the more people feel respected, and you can acknowledge their grief or their loss or whatever you want to call it. So the listening is very important. People say, how long do I have to listen? I said, until it goes down. So that's why I get them all together, get 300 people in a room, and go at it as fast as you can, because if you do it one-on-one, you will just be overwhelmed. So the large group thing is usually what scares leaders, but the large group thing is the fastest way to deliver. The people who do the work after 9/11, they're called America Speaks. They had thousands of people in a room at once talking. So you guys are to scale. You know about scale. You can understand how to do this large group shifting that we're going to need to get a lot of people through to get them to go on to the other things of sustainability. And then when you get over here, give them something to do. Give them something to do. Start out the skunk works. Get the little teams going. And then again, thank them. And then take them again. Okay? So that's what I've learned about change and the human side of change. And being able to, I used to have, actually it's funny that I have my red coat on here today. I used to have a red coat when I did some other work, and I used to call it the tomato suit. Because as the rented person, I was the one that was safe to say the stuff to. Because I was not I didn't manage you, I didn't write your report, I didn't do your bonus. So you can say stuff to me. So in some ways, a number of you will be the tomato suit people. Know enough that they are not mad at you, they are upset about it. And the it is usually some kind of change. So put on your tomato suit, and go out and listen to people tell you. Because once they tell you, they begin to heal. They begin to change their narrative. They begin to have a story that makes coherence for them. Okay? Okay. So let's go into the brain. I'm going to do this brain stuff kind of quickly, but I want to talk to you about our old brains. Because we have really old brains. And this is where we have to be compassionate to ourselves, because we are still working with the body that hasn't changed a lot in about 50,000 years or so. But we are in a very different environment. We are not on the savannah anymore. I live in San Francisco. I take a train. I am packed. And the little hairs on the back of my neck go up because I don't know where the threat is coming from. Is the wild person going to get on? Is something going to happen? And I don't like people that close to me. But here I am, and I would rather, my body is more like being on the savannah. But I am pushed into experiences where my brain is going off. And it's the basic fight or flight stuff. I won't try to be a neuropsychologist, because I'm not. But I like to help people understand that the physiology is real. And we have to help quiet ourselves. And especially during change, because what we are good at, and the only reason our little puny body is alive is because we're really good at sensing foe or friend. And we do that really fast. But if you have to do it really fast in New York 100 times, you get exhausted. So our mechanism is good, but the overuse of it can exhaust us. And in times of change, when all the patterns are different, you have to figure out, is this good for me? Is this bad for me? Is this a threat? Is this good? Is it da, 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 da. And so people are that's kind of why they're kind of grumpy and on edge. So with our old brains, and again, we have only been modern humans for the last 50,000 years. We go way back. And it's only in the last 5,000 years that we've had the variation of colors of eyes. So our body has not quite caught up to what we're living in. And we have to be kind to ourselves, because we have a very old part of the brain. That's the reptile, lizardy brain, which is basically the part that keeps you alive. It makes you breathe automatically. You don't have to think about breathe in, breathe out. It's good. We have more space to do other things. Then we began to get kind of our emotional system wrapped around that. And then we got this teeny prefrontal cortex thing that allows us to do all this conceptual thinking. You know, John last night going, da, 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 and the thing in the hand of the thing, that's what he's doing in his prefrontal cortex. So we have very old brains. And why am I telling you about this? Because this is how you ought to be selling scouting, basically, to all your high-tech people. Brain after sitting in front of the computer, which is probably even a different color than sitting quietly, and brain after 20 minutes of walking. Happier brain, more blood flow. You should be selling the neuropsychology of what you're doing with walking and outing and scouting and all that stuff. So if you want to help people become resilient and agile, your stuff does that. And the brain is very worried about negativity. It should be, because that's what it's for. It wants to keep you alive. So it wants to avoid the sticks, and it wants to find the carrots. That's all the basic things are hooked up to do. And it's not like, where's the dessert? But it's like, if I avoid the sticks and get carrots, I get to have another day. So this is your basic wiring, and we're hardwired for this. So again, the lizard brain is very fast. If you ever want to read more about this, there's this guy named Robert Sapolsky. He has some very funny books called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He did all his research on baboons and immunocompetency, how do you say it? He looked at baboon groups and studied them from a hierarchical. He took blood samples, if you can imagine. People do these things, and figured out who had the more cortisol and all this, which is the threat hormone. And basically, he found that people at the top, the baboon structure is very hierarchical. Top baboons, punk, the other baboons, and you get the pickings at the bottom. So what happened with the baboons is he saw this whole hierarchical thing with his samples. And then, just like change happens, they were having poachers. And they had to move his baboon colony and put them somewhere else. So what happened was all of the geographical territory, the parking lot, the cafeteria, everything that the baboons knew how to manage, gone. And they had to reestablish. What was interesting about his findings is he found that the people at the lower level of the baboon group got stronger, and the senior people got much more compromised, because it was more stressful on them to lose their sense of pattern and hierarchy. So understand that even the people at the top of an organization suffer, because it is hard on them to lose their territory or to lose the way everything has been. So beware of the lizard. I'm going on with this. Emotions are contagious. So your frontline leader, your scout leader of the Cub Scouts, is a very important person. That is your immunological start to the generative stream of whether they're going to be afraid to go out and afraid to take risks and all that. So your frontline person is very important. That's why this whole customer service thing. But the trouble with customer service is you can't make people smile when they don't feel like smiling. So you have to find people who are smiley and then teach them scouting. Teach them the skills, help them know what to do, but find those people who are filled with their positiveness going on. And because change puts people's brain in pain. So it isn't just like we're whining about this stuff. It is hard. Our brain does not like this. You ever teach your kid to drive stick shift? Oh, because he has no pattern for that. But once, yes, it's daunting. It's daunting. So anything that you're getting a new pattern with puts your brain in pain. So understand that all this change stuff is making us feel grumpy for a reason. We're not just wimps. It is discombobulating ourselves. Okay? So I'm going to stop this part. I'm going to give you a worksheet, because here's the upside of it. Okay, now we know the brain is in pain and the baboons are suffering and all this stuff. Okay, so how do you manage threats and rewards? What do you do? Because there's a guy named David Rock who's written a number of things, and I like his SCARF model a lot because it's simple. Basically, what you want to do during change, if you're going to threaten one of these SCARF things, you need to buffer with the other ones. So if you're going to threaten people's status, you're going to change them around, buffer with relatedness, bring them together, have potlucks, do something that connects them. Or if you're going to threaten their certainty, you guys don't know who your next president or whatever they're called is going to be, so you have threat level at certainty, then you better figure out how to be fair and what fairness represents. Because actually, this is the thing that's interesting. It's more upsetting to be punched by someone you know than hit really hard by someone you don't know. So it's the social threat, because we're not hunted now, by and large, by saber-toothed tigers, but social threat. Why are kids killing each other for saying terrible things to each other? Because it's social threat. So we have to understand how to buffer social threat and rebuild community. See, scouting does this. So if you want, another argument for why scouting now, and a way to tune up your offer, so to speak, is you buffer threats to status because you allow anybody can be a scout. And my son had an autistic kid in his scout troop, people, different bodied people. Anybody can be here. So those things are really important. Certainty, autonomy. You don't have to give people the whole story, you give them choice. Choice, involvement, and participation. If you can't give them full choice, say, you have 3 choices. You don't get to make up everything. So you begin to give people ways to deal with the social threat. So this is my favorite thing. And I gave you a worksheet here. So if you dial to the next page, doesn't look very worksheety, does it? Because it's filled with all kinds of red things. But basically, you can scribble. Yes. Yeah. We have a whole pile of them here, I think. Good. Thank you. Okay. I want you to talk among yourselves about this SCARF thing. And basically, maybe not the first question, because you've all seen ways that SCARF has been in action. But what are some ways that you've seen where this was buffered? How would you buffer this kind of social threat that comes with change. What could you begin to do? And maybe let's take it down, take it back into your own groups, because you all come from so many different places. We don't have like one thing. Each of you is going to have to go back and be a change leader in your organization. So whatever the change is that you have to bring, how are you going to buffer it? Give me some, let's just do this out loud for a minute. How would you buffer status? How would you buffer changes, threats to status in your groups?
I'll take a shot at it.
Okay, well.
I've always believed that if you have something you're very passionate about and you want to get it through, go meet with the CEO of the organization, and historically it's got 51% of the vote, and let him bring it up in the meeting, and it's usually done here.
So you acknowledge his or her status,
Right.
and you use it. You don't avoid them, you go to them and say, I'm doing this. Is that a way of?
Right.
Yes, let's hear it here.
Where is trust?
You guys got to be loud. Yeah.
What about, it seems to me you have to build trust before you can get anything else done. If nobody trusts me, they're not going to listen to me.
And what happens is trust is built from repeatable behavior. And so if you don't get repeatable behavior, that's what drives the brain crazy about threat, foe, safe, not safe. Then you will be avoided, and you will be given the smile song. And the hardest part with leaders is the people who need the feedback most never get it, because everyone's too afraid to tell them. So in some ways, what kind of Willie's approach is you go right to them and say, do you know? Or I say, I'm going to bring you a message you may not like. That's what the rented person, the tomato soup person, always does. And you try to back it up with data a little bit, because you gather up the data. You guys have data. You got exit interviews. You got all kinds of things that you have data. It's like, what is going on out there that people need to pay attention to? See, trust, there will never be enough trust. There is only courageousness, and what can they do to you at a certain point? So in some ways, if you're waiting for more trust, especially from a person who is not acting in a trustful manner, I don't know that it's going to happen. Because again, it's like, how many times do you watch behavior and it keeps repeating? So what you have to do is figure out a way to create status for the new ways. Maybe it's not status of person. What would bring status to a new idea around sustainability here? What would really light them up? New members? More people? Do something that does that. Then you will get status. Maybe not in the traditional pyramid, but you will get status in some way. And the other thing is, molecules get energy when they bump. And so what happens is, the more you bump other ideas and other people's energy, you will feel more empowered. So use the people that you're meeting here. Don't go, I always worry, meetings are fine, you feel very brave. And the trouble with these kind of meetings is, one of you came and you have to tell everyone back there what you went through, and they don't believe you, and they say, we can't do it here. So what happens is, how do you keep the energy going of what you want to do? You should be networking like mad with each other, and I hope you all are like taking down each other's whatever, so that you can say, help, I'm in Kansas City and I'm trying to do this thing. Who's got an idea? See, I imagine that you are smarter together than you are by yourselves. So I would hope that you figure out how to connect to each other. And that's why we're doing these kind of, tribal gatherings here, because you need to, see, that's what our students do. They go back and run, they go back to Indiana, all kinds of places, and they are alone. And so they have to have their tribe around them. You guys have a tribe. See, scouting already has a tribe. You're just not using it away enough for yourselves. So the status stuff is when you are taking on status, move the status object to something else. Buffer it with some other way of giving people status for having brought in innovation, or celebrating something else. Certainty. How would you buffer with certainty? What could you do right now? You make them
share the known facts.
Yes, yes. You can share the known facts. You can share the stuff. You could put it on the table. One of my favorite things to do is when we collect all those survey things, I make the people read it to each other out loud. Because looking at it on the screen doesn't move through here. But when you have to read the things that they said about you in your 360, then it becomes a different engagement. So again, maybe I'm talking about how to scarf people, but I'm also saying, tell them what you know. The more transparent, the more people can weigh in. All of you know probably one thing that everybody else doesn't know. So how do you create the Wikipedia of what you know? How do you begin to say what you know and make pattern out of it? We are animals of pattern. We're looking for pattern. We want to see the map. So that's why I say to people, even if you don't know, there's a whole bunch of things that leaders don't want to look like they don't know. And so they're very hesitant to say things. And so what happens is that in the absence of saying anything, awfulizing occurs. Massive awfulizing occurs. And if you want to make people really crazy, don't tell them anything. Their ideas will be far worse than anything they could have even imagined. So begin to tell them, or if you can't, tell them how you're going to close a plant. We're going to close it. We have two options. We close it fast or slow. And we know these things. We got this federal money and this thing. What do you want to do? Those kind of things. Yes?
Another piece of it is the importance of how you communicate, not just what you communicate, especially with millennials. There's only certain types of messages that are going to be listened to, and it depends on how they're delivered.
Mm-hmm.
You can raise certainty about an issue if you rethink the way in which you're communicating.
Yeah. So, and I'll push back just a little bit about this whole thing of millennials or these special people. Yes, they grew up in a different time, and I have them in my house, so I'm very, it's like, but at a certain point, you have an endless message about values that everybody pays attention to. But I agree with you. I also know that with some people, I use a thing called 5 Dynamics, which tells me, I use it with my Saatchi team, because when we went from Walmart, which is a yay, yay, yay kind of culture, and everybody's clapping their hands and stuff, and my people went in, in these kind of cultures, and then we go to Duke Energy. Do. My team did not do well in that transition. And it was not about millennials. It was about difference in culture and the way they process information. We had to change our whole slide deck. We had to take out all the color. We had to put fact. And we took out, and so it was more about how we communicated the information than the age of the person. But I'm with you with you gotta meet them where they are, and then the message goes further. Relatedness is easy. All you have to do is get people to talk to each other. Let them have time to talk. And fairness. You can say, it is not going to be fair. We have to downsize 10% of our people. But the fairness is, this is the process we will follow. Doesn't mean you're going to like it. We learned this, actually Kaiser is very interesting with the healthcare system. We learned this with doing colonoscopies. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. What they used to do was they would assign you your slot. Like, you're 10 o'clock, you have to come in. Lots of no-shows. Because what happened is, and they had all these people there waiting to do your procedure, and nobody showed. The difference is they flipped it around and say, would you like a morning appointment or an afternoon appointment? It didn't say you could not have an appointment. So, but what happened is the rate of no-shows went down when you gave people a little choice. Simple, small, okay? So this is, we had sort of I don't know whether you want to have this discussion. It's kind of a mid-late. I think we've kind of had the discussion. I'll leave this for you because I want to make sure I do the last two pieces. How much more time do I have? Because my watch is set on West Coast time and I'm completely in a different zone. Good, okay. Then I'll ask you, okay, let's take you to this part. This is the next thing. Because this part is really about being able to focus yourselves. And when we've got so much change going on, and finding your path to what will make a difference. I liken it to acupuncture. You know, your body is this whole system, and they claim, and in my experience of acupuncture, they'll put like a needle here and something will happen over here in the left leg, and you go, how did that happen? Because you found a leverage point. So when you think of sustainability, you're looking for leverage points. What little things can you do that will move a whole system? And so you're looking for the place to put the acupuncture needles into the organization. Now, we're going to do the exercise based on your own personal experience because that's what you'll pay most attention to. And then you can writ it large on your organization. Because what I find is that people want to know, how do I be agile? What is agility? I love this doggy. I mean, look what he's doing. He is like, shoo, shoo, shoo. He's like, one half of him is going one way and the other half is going the other. And he does this thing. And it's like, we should be that agile to go through the curve, to make shifts about things. But he is very focused on where he's going. So to me, it's an animal kind of like look at directionality, vision, with a lot of shifts in between. And what happens is, who does well during change and who doesn't do well? That's what I did my dissertation on, was the early hardiness research about who stays hardy during high stressful events. And I did it with physicians and actually replicated the pattern that the researchers before me had found. I just wanted to try it out on doctors. And what is interesting about it was, let's do it this way. I'll have you recreate the model because you've got it inside yourself already. You don't need me to put the research up. Think of a time when you were doing really well. Remember the last one was change. This one is on the other side of that. Time when you were doing really well. And this could be a long time ago. This can be yesterday. And you have 100 of these. So all I want you to do is just pull down one. But when you are under stress, you need to be able to have that one to pull down or 6 to pull down. So I'm just going to give you a chance to kind of buff up one of them. Has everybody got their story? What happened to you? Let me ask you some questions. How many of you were doing something where you could say to another person or to yourself, why is this happening? That big why question that the Solar City guy asked about. Why is this happening? How many of you did something where you took control? Where you didn't wait for permission? You went ahead. Okay, we're going to do the hands in a minute. It's okay. I knew you had one. I'm quiet. I know. It's okay. See, quietness is okay because people are thinking inside themselves. Because we do very little of that. We do a lot of talking. How many of you were thinking about a time when you were challenged? That you stretched yourself beyond? Was that part of your experience? You went further than you thought you could go? And how about, was there anybody noticing you, recognizing you, appreciating you? So I'm not going to have you talk to anybody. We're just going to do some hands and just see what the human computer looks like, okay? How many of you were doing something? Let's see if we can, the clicky click. How many of you are doing something where you could make sense of it? You could have a story about why it was happening to you. Okay. How many of you are doing something where you stretched yourself farther than you thought you could go? Okay. How many of you went and took initiative, any kind of initiative? Okay. And how about the people seeing you, appreciating you, recognizing you? So this research comes from this model comes from two pieces of research. I didn't make up the C's. First was Salvador Matti and Suzanne Kobasa at University of Michigan. University of Chicago. They looked at people during the AT&T divestiture, and they looked at retrospective chart review, which you'd never be able to do in these days with HIPAA. You would never be able to look at. And they looked at the people who stayed well, i.e., in their words, did not visit the doctor, which is not such a great measure, but it was a way of looking at it. And they found that they did those top three things. They were able to make meaning. They could explain, why is AT&T doing this? Why are they closing this? Why, big change going on. And they found a way to focus on something where they could stretch themselves. The other thing, people hate to be stretched by anybody else. People will always set higher goals for themselves than any manager will. So why are you spending all this time setting other people's goals? Let them self-set their goals and help back them down so they can, not kill themselves in the process. Challenge is like elastic, but you will pull your own elastic far faster than you will let anyone else pull your elastic. Third one was control, and it's not about control over others. It was about choice, involvement, and participation. So you can close a plant with dignity, and you can let people die well, or hospice work, or whatever you want to call it, but people will do that at their own control. They know what to do. And they like choice. The last one comes from a whole other piece of research on social support. And there's been this long-term study on survivor rates of people who live really long. And it's in Alameda County. So it's been going on, I think, 30 years now. It's called the Alameda County Study. And basically they ask people, who do you talk to? And what's very interesting, the gender differences were very different. You ask guys who they talk to, it's a very silent conversation. Or they say their spouse, or their dog. Or their kitty. Somebody has kitties. So what's really interesting, you ask women who they talk to, and they go on and on and on and on and on. Da, 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 da. It is the buffer of social support. So why did Kaiser use this when they launched their Friends Could Be Good Medicine campaign? And why does Kaiser do lots of social support groups around all of their arthritis, chronic disease, kind of whatever? They've got these groups going on where people can come and talk to one another. And the other thing, the unintended consequences of some of their work was that the people who had to drive these people to the arthritis support group met over in the coffee shop, and they got support too. So it was a twofer. Not only did the persons who had the chronic disease, so they reduced medication, reduced recidivism, all kinds of stuff. So let's go back to the guy thing about we don't talk. This is very important because it makes a difference in longevity. It is a real big buffer of your body, because we are social animals, and we do not like to be away from the campfire. And we need people to tell our story to. And I'm not saying that the dog is bad. Actually, there was a nursing home study where they actually the Girl Scouts delivered plants to the nursing home patients. And they said, oh, the old nursing home people, we're going to bring the plants in, but we've had cutbacks, and we'll just leave them here. Nobody will water them unless you do. Okay? And that you are at the fancy nursing home, and we will bring the plants in, and your nurse will water. Don't worry, you will be fine. Who lives longest? Those people. Never underestimate the power of the plant, the kitty, the doggy. I don't care where you're getting it, but your social connection is very important to your well-being. So the relatedness stuff, and this is why death of spouse happens. Men are so vulnerable, I have to say this, because you are vulnerable. If your spouse dies, you die. Because you often have all your eggs in one basket. You have one very deep relationship. And so death of spouse is the best indicator of death of you, if they go first. So, and building a social network at midlife is hard. And when you're 70, it's really hard. And when you're 90, all your friends have died. So how do you reconnect? So I have this image that scouting is the thing that you can go to the campfire with for a long time. So I see scouting trailer parks, I see scouting Burning Man. You know, people want to come back. That's what colleges are doing now with those retirement centers right next to the school. And they are selling out because people want connectivity. And you guys have the best stories. The guy at lunch was showing his Troop 77 thing. You could spend a lot of good time with each other. You've got a lot of stories and a lot of campfires that you've been to. So these are things that are, I say these things because during change, you will be taxed. And you better build your hardiness. And these are the things now, we talked about it from the personal level. All these work on an organization. Same thing. Coherence. If you don't know where you're going, you are lost. My favorite thing when I go into an organization, I sit in the cafeteria and ask people, what's going on here? Where's your direction? That is not a good answer. That is not, I rode the buses. I was working on stress and bus drivers. I said, what's the mission here? You know, it's like, that is not a good answer. That is an answer, a weak immunocompetency of the organizational body. If you don't know what you're doing here and why. This research came out of work on prisoner of war camp survivors, Holocaust survivors. The people who live are the people that can make sense of something awful and make it a story, a narrative. So this is like, if you're teaching mountain survival, this is part of that packet of being able, what are we doing here? The other thing that they also studied, people who were, like when Beirut was a big mess, people who got like taken off the street, if they were there just like for nothing, or you know, tourists or something, they didn't do so well. But if you were there as a reporter and you had a mission, you survived better. So this is very core. This is back to the campfire. This is what is your story and what are you doing? Challenge, I said the thing about nobody likes anybody else to tell you the level. So engage in a conversation, set your own level. Don't be underwhelmed by your organization. Mediocrity is no fun for anybody. And nobody wants to play small. So how do you play your own set of challenges? I used to work in the cafeteria. We used to like sort the silverware out of the thing. And we used to have races. Who could do it fastest? Those are like little self-challenges. That's like small stuff, but it is stuff that gives you some sense of self-efficacy. And at organizational level, control is choice, involvement, and participation. We've talked about give people choice. That's why the Nissan plant or the Toyota plant was so interesting, because in the Japanese system, anybody can pull the thing and stop the line. Anybody. I don't know where your rope is here in your organization, but I'm not sure all of you could put your hand on it and say, something we got to do here. Connection, you are deeply connected to one another. And remember, emotion is contagious. And so if people are feeling grumpy and not full of what they're doing, and you don't have anybody to talk to, so this is your campfire. Tonight is your time to really connect. And you have amazing resources. So don't go out of here thinking you're isolated. It's kind of like Presidio. It's like the students come in for 4 days a month and then they go back out. And so you have to get on Skype with each other. You have to connect with each other. You have to talk to each other. You have to say, question of the week. We used to always do question of the week. What are you trying to solve? And the person puts up question of the week, and then everybody goes, like Presidio, the student thing is like a giant Craigslist of sustainability. You know, if you want anything, just put it through Zach into the Presidio network, and you'll get like, it's like pen pals. You'll get all kinds of people saying, you could do this and this and this and this, and I tried this in Alameda County, and you know, like let people know what you're trying to do. Okay? So that's why I talked about resilience. Pack yourself well, because we are not going into we're going into uneasy territory, in case we haven't been there already. Okay. I'm going through this. I'm going to take you into, here's a little exercise you can do with your groups when you go back, because I'm taking out the sea of control. And how do you get people to take more control? People just don't know quite what to do. So I'm going to give you a little template and let you do the exercise with each other. And what I'm going to do is think of things. I don't know whether it's the change you are facing. What would be the right question? What would be the right thing to focus on? Because I want us to be able to have a good, coherent, it's just a paired discussion. But maybe it's, okay, maybe da-da-da. What about, huh? Do you want to try that? You want to try membership? Let's do membership. Okay, let's do membership. You guys, in case you didn't know it, we're having some kind of thing with attractiveness and stickiness, okay? And let's look at what you can control about this, because I think you may have some limiting beliefs about what you can actually do. So I'm going to, let's try that. Ooh, yes. I'm going to go to the board again, because I'm going to write stuff up as you think about it. I'm going to ask you, maybe on your other piece of paper, to make a 3-column thing. And let's not call it membership. See, membership is very disembodied. You know, it's like it's making people objects. You want members. You don't want members. You want people to join you. You want compadres. What did that guy call them? What did John call them last night? This is solutionaries. You want to find solutionaries. You see, the other thing is they're out there. You're just not hunting in the right places. So, and you're not telling what you really do. Okay, you want to invite more solutionaries into your tribe. And I'm going to have you do a 3-column, and let's do it by yourself first, and then you can have a table discussion. But first, I want you to each do this. The things that you can control about inviting more people into the tribe of solutionaries, also known as Boy Scouts. Things that you can control, things that, and I mean control meaning you could enact with your body. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need, you know, it's you autonomous. How about things that you could influence? Influence usually means with another person. So it's you and another, or another system. So this is you within yourself. And how about those things that you can't do anything about? Make a quick list. Quick list. Now we're going to take it to the next level. You got something in each column-ish. If you don't, make it up. Okay? Imagine that there might be something you can't control. Okay? Let's have, just give me 3 examples of something you can control about inviting more people into the tribe. Just pop up. Meaning what? You can open your mouth. Thank you. Okay, you can invite them. What else?
What we market.
Huh?
What we market.
Meaning what can you do about what you market?
Like activities, certain activities that we market versus other activities that we market.
You can choose what you talk about. Okay?
Where you send it.
Where you send it, you can post.
I can post events.
You can host things. You can gather people. One more from over here.
Well, I wrote down share your personal experience.
Share your personal experience. Everybody has a personal story that is so portable. Okay, what are some things that you think you can influence? This is mean where you got to get something else to kind of happen. Over here. Influence. Just give me one. Make it up. Come on. How? Influence means you can tell others, but they may not be motivated by what you say. But you at least can open your mouth. Okay? Yeah? Huh?
Network.
You can network. What does network mean?
Just get like-minded people together.
Okay, you can gather people. You can invite them over. You can say, come watch what we're doing.
Perception.
Huh?
Perception.
Perception. What is perception?
Like influence somebody's perception of something rather than,
Show them rather than tell them.
yes.
Okay. Go see it. Go invite them in. What are some of the things you can't control? National policy. See, you know that innovation happens the farthest from the national center, whether it be IBM of Armonk, because the people in Florida were the most inventive. It does. So geography is your helper. Yes.
We can't control idiots in our movement who knock over rocks and things that happen, and we're a huge tent.
Yes.
We can control them.
You can't control other people. Let's be very clear. You cannot control anybody else, and barely yourself. Okay.
You can't control competitors.
Competitors, yeah, you can't, because somewhere someone is inventing something that you don't even know that they're doing it, and it's in China probably. You can't control the new members' available time. Yes. Right, they have their lives.
Limited resources.
Yeah.
That can only allocate a certain amount.
Okay. So now, so we've pulled apart this. So the first thing you do is you pull it apart, and you list things in columns. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add another dimension. So we just did this. And now, how do you feel when you take action on something you can control? How do you feel? Empowered?
Positive.
Positive? Smart? Okay, good. The good stuff. Okay? How do you feel when you take action on things that you cannot control? Frustrated? Angry? Defeated, depleted, burned out, whatever you want to call it, not good. How about, let's go here. So this is you feel smart or good. This you feel not good. How about when you take no action on things you can control? What happens when you could have done something and you didn't? Frustrated. Huh? Should have had a V8. Regret. Remorse. You play it over and over again, that moment of, shoulda, coulda, woulda sort of thing. Okay? So it is that zone of kind of regret, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, yeah. I'm spelling it wrong. How about when you take no action on things that you can't control? Mm-hmm. Neutral?
Yeah, like there's nothing you really could do there anyway, so you didn't waste time and energy.
Relief. I mean, like, the hardest thing to do with young physicians is to get them to call a code. They want us to keep pumping on the person, and sometimes you have to stop. There's nothing you can do. So you have to confront your helplessness and go into release or relief. You have to let go. So this one is let go. And this one is giving up. I didn't do what I could have done because I'm thinking about it. Now, okay, so I'm trying to get this exercise for you. So we're actually doing this now around solutionaries. What I'm curious about, so give me, let's get it kind of, so something you can control, which you feel good about, is tell your personal story. What else? Just give me two more about getting more people in.
Hold an event.
Hold an event, open your mouth, ask people, those kind of things, okay? That's called smart and good and things you can do all by yourself. How about, what would be an example of this, where you're taking action on something you can't do anything about? Or leadership in terms of what? Yourself?
Sure, and I mean, aren't you starting with the premise that that can't be changed?
No.
I mean, because if I confront somebody that or something where I don't think I can make a difference and I end up making a difference, I mean that's also
Because where you are that is the influence zone of the middle. That is called, I'm not sure, but I might try. You see, where you get, see, over here you've got some little good zones, safe zones. Where you don't want to be is giving up. There's nothing I can do. See, they don't care about me. There's nothing I can do. See, they don't care about me. Don't get in that trap. What you're talking about is, maybe if I did talk to this person, something might happen. So where you get more territory is you expand into the influence zone. You try stuff. It may not always work, but you got another little bit out there. The other thing about the influence zone, and this is what I think John was talking about, is little bits of control. You start trying little things, and then they become connected. And then you have a pattern, and then you have more space and territory. And you hear that those people are doing it, and those people start doing it. And then you get an idea, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So you don't go, the influence zone is one of those places where you get more territory, but you have to cross the risk. The risk is, I will say something and I get the big black mark on my permanent record or whatever that is. It's like, it's like a certain point, the risk zone is where you have to cross going from, there's nothing I can do. Oh, you mean not even writing a letter? Crossing the risk zone, pushing out the influence zone. There's the territory. So when you sit down and all you have here, when you go back to your council or your group or whatever, have them diagram, have them brainstorm, have them pull it apart, because it's when it's one big glump of I don't know what to do, then people feel, confused. Pull it apart into can and can't, look at the stuff in the middle, and then begin to encourage people to cross the risk zone. Because risk is, how do people, again, I'm going to talk about the Walmart stuff for 10 minutes. How do people begin to lose weight? They lose weight by walking around the building, not by taking on, all of this. But they stop feeling helpless and hopeless, and they stop saying, they'll never let me out of work to do this. This is where you can really get yourself trapped. I showed you this at the individual level. It also works at the organizational level. So just writ it large, map the things you can do in the place you have control. Okay? So that's my last piece on this. I let you take that home because you'll do better if you spend time here. And not everything should be worked on. Not everything is worth effort. Not everything. So conserving your energy for the stuff that you can really acupuncture, twist the needles on, that's where you begin to work. And it may look less heroic and less sweaty and less active, but it's real strategic. Okay? So the last piece is about Walmart. And I've talked a little bit about what did Walmart do. These were their 3 big audacious goals, and you can read this on their website. All the work that we did at Saatchi and Saatchi S is up on their website. They don't call it PSP anymore. They call it PMP because of copyright. And they wanted to own it, so now they own it. It's called personal something practice. Management practice. I don't know what it is. So anyway, let's imagine you're Lee Scott and you come back as a CEO and you all of a sudden say, I saw all this stuff and I got woken up and oh my God, I can make a difference. What really also, besides the going to the Amazon, was Katrina. The response of Walmart to Katrina, they got there before FEMA did. And when they finally figured out, oh my gosh, we are a force. We are a wicked supply chain. And we could do a lot of things with our supply chain. So after Katrina, he said, we have the power to do something really interesting. So they started thinking way out of the box. And I'm sure he gave his whole board the complete jitters when he said, we're going to be supplied 100% by renewable energy, produce 0 waste, and sell products that sustain resources in the environment. And we are Walmart. Talk about values tension. Talk about, oh my gosh. And they actually wanted us to help them. They came to us, a little teeny firm. There were 10 of us in San Francisco. I'm sure they didn't know how little we were. They actually, because they came after Adam Warbach, who was the sustainability guy, and they wanted him to work with Walmart. And as I was saying, he was on the cover of Fast Company as growing horns. He was the evil incarnate for working with Walmart. What we do with our students is we say, you gotta go in. If you're gonna stand outside and chain yourself to the buildings, you're not at the table. Equip yourself with the skills and go in. And so what we did is he wanted us to help him gin up something. And it was perfect because, first of all, it was Walmart. They'd never done any employee development, Diane. They had nothing. They didn't do any training, orientation. They just, they have like amazing, horrible turnover because many people come out of the homeless shelter to work as cashiers. I mean, you are the employer of last resort in some ways. And so they had amazing churn going on there. And they wanted to do something. And oh, by the way, they probably had this real brewing thing with women and not paying enough and big mess happening over here. So let's distract them and do sustainability and do something over here. So they wanted us to help them drive sustainability through their organization, integrate sustainability into the mindset of their culture, and inspire associates to innovate. So it was an amazing, but we were also scared. I was not there when they asked. I came in about 8 months after they had started doing it because we were trying to scale it. And it was like we had to do it a lot. We had to do it all across Canada. And so these are pictures of people. And basically they were going to engage employees as catalysts to sustainability. What they did is everything that most corporations don't do. They took volunteers, not voluntolds, not people who were selected because of who they were, but they just took anybody who raised their hand because what Walmart gave people who raised their hand was 6 hours of release time and a day of training with these wild people from San Francisco who took them off to some kind of ecological place that was not the bottom of a basement with no windows. And what we did is we began to wake them up to sustainability. And this is our circle, this is our ending circle. We started in a circle. Everybody circled up. And the question we ask is, what makes you happy? And some people have never been asked that question in their life, nor listened to if they said it. So we started the circle was what makes you, because we were channeling positive psychology, self-efficacy, and as much, interactive engagement learning as we could figure out, because we had to do something that went viral through Walmart. So they came together, and they usually did multiple stores. The one my first one I went to was in the Yukon, and we held it at some boathouse, because we took these places that had to be close to nature, that had smell, and we actually served people organic lunch, which was like, oh my God, what is this? Eating leaves of some sort. And these people all flew in on float planes from the Yukon. They ran big P&Ls in the Yukon, and they were here in this boathouse. They'd raised their hand, and they came together to stand in a circle and say, what makes me happy? Well, my favorite guy said, what makes him happy is killing bears. I said, oh, it's going to be a great day. We're going to have a great day. But we made it safe enough that people could say what made them happy. And it wasn't, besides bears, it was grandchildren, it was walking around the thing, it was cleaning up the park. We didn't care what they said. They had to say something. So we began in a circle. And then what we did is we used organizing, because we knew we could never make enough booklets and curriculum and all that stuff, because it wasn't going to work. And Sachi actually made lots of advertising stuff, posters and tabletop things. None of that worked at all. We just started peeling that stuff away and using face-to-face organizing, because all we did with people for that day is let them learn how to go and recruit other people to come get their PSP. And they co-created it, because we didn't come with the box kit that says, this is what you should do. We said, let's wake up together, and you figure out how you want to get more people, and you figure out what you want to do at the Tulsa store, and you figure out what you want to do there, because it's up to you. Because they didn't pay us enough to build any infrastructure, and these people didn't have tablets, they didn't have phones. This was 5 years ago. They didn't have money to have this, and they didn't have any computers either, because Walmart didn't want them to have any computers, because they wanted them out selling and doing their work. So there was nothing in the break room. And we gave them aspirational goals. Flexible framework is a nice way of saying, do what you want. And you must do something that was achievable. We didn't bring down benchmark goals that had I see 5. And we did not, these were people that worked together, lived together, not communally or anything, but when you spend 8 hours of your working day, that is more time than you spend awake with your family. That's why I work in the workplace, because you have more exposure to those environments than anything else. So that's why I go into the workplace, because that's where people live. And it was voluntary, okay? And they moved their bodies. We had them stretch, we had them breathe, we had a big table at the lunch that said, bring in anything you think is sustainable. We had big fights about, is cold water tide really worth it? Does it really work? Does it this, and everybody brought in all kinds of stuff. And we gave them facts that backed up their choices and helped them understand what they were doing. We did live training. There was no online, because it was face-to-face contagion, okay? And what is this? The captains went back and they structured whatever they wanted to do. So there would be a captain of a region, and each store could either do it or not do it. It wasn't rolled out from the corporate headquarters. And my team actually could be called. They were the coaches, kind of like Diane's coaches are going to be. My team would talk to people from Walmart, and they would say, I'm trying to do this. What should I do? And they got ideas, and they got this. And then we began to make FAQs, and we began to make lists of things. And we actually gave people flip phones, and they started recording what they were doing, and then feeding it back. And we made Walmart TV, we made Walmart, you know, old-fashioned magazines. I mean, pictures of people are very important. And all we did was capture stories, because stories are all you need. See, you're packed with stories. You don't need anything more to be viral and engaging. And so we used the web, but they had no, they had no devices. We tried to do tracking. Oh, this is the failure of my career. We were supposed to like prove what was happening. Well, there was no screens, there was no computers. They had a sheet that they would write down, and I would come in every morning, and the fax machine was filled with data. And it's like we were just dying of data, uncontrolled, anecdotal, nothing. I mean, it was like one of those lost opportunities. But what's interesting is stuff started to happen. And we just documented the success. And because it wasn't really viral, people started going to other stores and said, "What are you doing?" And then people kept visiting. Yes, those are cups on the wall at Walmart in the break room. They put up those things. Nobody told them, "You can't put that on the walls." They did stuff because we helped them do stuff that they could enact right there. They didn't have to wait for somebody to do something. They could get the plastic water bottles out of their kids' soccer teams. They could begin to do, and here's the wild stuff that happened. I know I have 2 minutes. The wild stuff that happened was people started doing things that we totally hadn't talked about. The biggest things they did was they lost weight and they quit smoking. We did not go in with the health message, but they began to make the connection between my body. If I'm polluting my body, I'm polluting the planet. It was really interesting. 19,000 people on those fact sheets said they'd quit smoking. The Center for Disease Control called us up and said, "What are you doing? You've got some viral health thing going on out there that nobody knows what you're doing." We didn't either. So people made scrapbooks. They made quilts of their PSPs. Now, a PSP was just simply, what is your personal sustainability practice? It's not a beach cleanup. Practice means you do it all the time. See, we got very event-based. That's why I don't like these campaigns and things. I find them to be interesting but not real deep. I don't care whether you clean up a beach once a year. I want to know what you put in your body every day. And people started walking around the buildings and losing weight. And they got empowered. And they started doing other things. So then the next module, besides sustainability, the next module we did was financial sustainability. We taught people how to get out of credit card debt. We taught people how to do a budget, how to add up stuff. Oh my God. And the third one we did was civic engagement, also called voting. Very wild, because these are people who felt very disenfranchised. So we use sustainability as the strange attractor. So that's why I think you can use sustainability as a conversation starter. And it works. Here we are. 500,000 associates voluntarily adopted a PSP. 19,000 people quit smoking. 185,000 pounds of weight was lost. We were not Weight Watchers. I mean, it's pretty easy. They were big to start with. So, you know, people walked, swam, bikes. They had idea groups. 4 million pounds a week. The recycling that these people did killed the recycling centers in the towns that they were in. They couldn't deal with the volume. So then they began to run their own places. They started making money. My favorite one is the story of the guy who's sitting in the break room with the big Coke machine that's like bright. You know, they're on all night long. And he finally said, "What happens if we unscrew the bulb?" Curious. He calculated, and then that went viral. People start unscrewing the bulbs in all the Coke machines all over Walmart. Then they started unscrewing the bulbs at night when they went home on the vegetable things. You know, you just tilt them and they go off. Why does the cars need light? Why do the veggies need light at night? what are we starting to say? People begin to be viral. Now, I don't think this would ever work. We failed. I'll tell you, the story was everybody else wanted us to do this, AT&T, Frito-Lay, Duke Energy, those kind of people. They killed it because they didn't want to let it loose. They were scared to death. They wanted only certain people to be able to do this. They wanted only certain level of people, and they had to go through application process, and then they had to. By the time it got through HR, it was dead. So it went through operations at Walmart. That's why it stayed alive. And the other thing they did with their trucks, they rerouted all their trucks to only make right-hand turns. Do you know the fuel you save if you only route during right-hand? You don't sit there going, waiting for the left. Small, weird things. They redid all the milk cartons so that they could stack them differently and save space. Besides getting the P&G, making the Tide compact, they started pushing their supply chain. So, very simple, small thing. If you want to take this home to your scouts, ask them what makes them happy. Listen to their doggies and their kitties and their flowers and the sun, like that kid, makes me happy. Let them start with whatever makes them happy. Don't say, it's reusable cup month. That's the trouble with green teams. Green team, it's reusable. What if it isn't reusable cup month to you? What if you hate reusable cup? Why are you doing it? Then you're voluntold. Stop that stuff. It's debilitating. See, Scouts still has that wildness in it. So keep the wildness. Ask your people what makes them happy and let them choose what they want to do in sustainability around what makes them happy. Let them invent their own projects. Please don't make there be a whole big list of things you should be doing. Please, please, please. And all you do is, what we had people do was, how do you choose your PSP? You look at your whole life, not just your work life. What makes you happy? Where is happiness in the calendar of your day? Are you happiest at 6 a.m.? Are you happiest when you put your kids to bed? Are you happiest when you drive to work and see your friends? Where is your happiness? And what you do is you link your PSP to the happiness thing. You don't try to fix the thing you hate most and do it. That's really old school. That's like pick up and it's like go with something you love and put it into your routine so it happens every day. So if all you want to do is pack your kids' lunch, that's substantial. Waste, all kinds of things. All you want to do, wash with cold water Tide, and they started sharing whatever they did. So it has to be smart. It has to sustain the planet. It has to make you happy. It has to affect the community in some way. It has to be regular and continuous, and you must do it out loud. It has to look like you're doing something. People have to notice you doing something different. That's all we did. So this is not rocket science. This is simple. But I think in the core of it, it kind of went to a place where a lot of sustainability stuff has gotten stuck because it gets over-programmed and over-controlled. People are smart. People want to have a good life. So I'm supposed to put you out on your walk and talk, John. Do you want me to do that? Yeah. Okay. What do you think? Okay, 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 go. Okay.
The wonderful, wonderful Mike. Okay, two quick housekeeping things before Cynthia releases us into. If you notice on the schedule, we have scheduled 30 minutes, now 25 minutes of personal and organizational vision setting. So she's about to send you off for that. Housekeeping things tonight. I made a mistake. The bunker tour, the people who are going on the bunker tour, the meeting location is the Cameo Ballroom. That's where we have our lunches and our dinners. They don't want 30 people congregating in front of the reception desk, so we're meeting in the ballroom, or those people who are going are meeting in the ballroom, and we'll leave from there. That is from 5:30 to about 6:30, 6:45. And then when you're done with that, our dinner will start at 7. Hopefully you'll be done in time to come by the networking reception. The reception tonight is in the same reception place we had last night, and the dinner's in the same location we had last night, so it's very simple. Hopefully you're figuring your way around this hotel by now. And then after dinner, we haven't really spoken about this, but in the theater, which is right down this hallway here, by the restrooms. If you go down there by the Greenbrier Theater. Last year, one of the comments that was made to us, and actually came from one of our youth participants, was, sure, it'd be great if there was something late at night where we can hang out and experience something together rather than just go to the casino or just wander the hotel. And so tonight we are showing the movie Fresh, and Joel Salatin, who is our keynote speaker tomorrow at lunch, will be here to introduce that because he's in the film, and we'll talk about that. So if you're up for after dinner and you have a cup of coffee and you're wired and want to spend some time and have some fun, that's in the movie theater. I don't think the Greenbrier dress code really applies, so this is a good time to just hang out and watch a movie. And even if you just come to hear Joel and then sneak out, that's fine as well. So wanted to mention those things. So Cynthia, I'm turning it back into you.
Okay.
First off, before you release everybody, this is our last time with you. And I appreciate the investment and the structure of the program. There's a lot of material here for us to digest as we're traveling home. And the positive nature of meeting people where they are and not taking, we can, Scott Harmon and I will argue back and forth because we're polar opposites. He's an engineer and I'm not. And he will over-engineer things, and I'm very simplistic. And I think meeting people where they are is a critical thing for us. And one of the things I really picked out is just the volunteer versus the voluntold. And there are only 5,000 or so professional scouters across this nation, yet we have over 1 million volunteers. And we are a volunteer-run organization, and so it's about unleashing the power of the volunteers and not into the voluntold and making it too structured. So I appreciate that. That was the incredible encouragement to those of us that are professionals. So back to you as you send us out.
Okay. We've left this amount of time because our goal today was to engage you at table conversations with yourself and with others, and to begin to maybe looking either at the power grid that says, what can you do in that box that you can do? And what do you need to let go of that you can just let go of? So we're going to give you an opportunity. Something we do at Presidio is called walk and talk. And we do it with a pair, a person, another person, imagine another person. And the reason we call it a walk and talk is if you sit, this is back to the brain stuff, if I sit, I'll sit over here. If I sit in front of you and ask you questions about yourself, you feel threat, okay? That's because I'm too close or I'm like right in his face or whatever. It doesn't matter even if I sit back. But if I get up and I walk next to you like we used to walk on the savannah, out across Africa, telling stories to each other. There's a different level. This is why people talk to you on airplanes. This is why your kids will say everything in the backseat of the car, because they think you're not listening, because you're sideways to them. You're not this way to them. It's a real secret. So this is why you take people on walks. So I encourage you and I invite you. I want you to release yourself. Let me give you two choices, and it will be chaotic, and you will figure it out. You can either choose a person that you've been at the table with, or you can choose somebody, if you can find them fast enough, that you want to talk to. I want to encourage you to deepen your connection. The other thing is, it doesn't matter. Whoever you get is the right person, because they are not there to coach you. All they're doing is listening to you talk about either what you're going to do in that square of action and control, or, as John just said, what'd you take out of here? What's moving in you? What's bubbling up in you? Back to our question that we started with. Where are you with the sustainability stuff? What are you still curious? What do you need? You can go on. You can fill in whatever you need. It's a time to take a walk with someone and see what conversation happens. So it really doesn't matter who you choose, because the other thing is the right person is going to choose you, or you will choose them. But I encourage you to go out and take a walk. We've been here in the dark container for a while. Campfire. We chose this room because we wanted more space. So know that we did this. We gave up the windows, but we got our great campfire, okay? So we did this on purpose. So choose somebody to go have your walk and talk with. And the last piece of structure, at least give persons 10 minutes of uninterrupted kind of time, and then you can go back with the other person for 10 minutes. Or you can do how much other time you want. But try it for 10 minutes. You deserve to be out in the air, have some air out, let yourself think, okay?